Holiday Chapman.
And I'm Akila Friend.
Okay, you guys. So design is not something that you just randomly pick up one day, okay? It is a skill. You need a certain creative eye and a magic touch, honey, to turn a whole space into livable art. These sisters right here do exactly that with the show coming out in the fall on HGTV. So let's please give a warm welcome to Leslie and Courtney, the sisters.
Hey. We are so, yes, so we'll just do a
round of applause.
Me too. I mean, we are so excited to talk to you about creating home, to talk to you about design, about your dynamic, everything. So let's just jump straight to it. How about you guys, talk about why design? Why is it that you're doing what you're doing and doing it so well on HGTV? But why is it that you chose design as the way to make your mark in this world?
Well, Court. Honestly, Leslie and I grew up in 1-bedroom apartments our whole life, just with our mom, 3 women in a home space. And so I feel like it innately came to us to be able to create a safe space and to be able to create somewhere where we felt open to create whatever it is that we wanted to. Our mom is creative as well. And so for us, it was just creating space that people feel comfortable in and that they can thrive in. And I think that has taken both of us into various roads into creating home. And now here we are where our paths have now merged into creating home for other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think design, namely because it's something that we're both really tapped into in different ways. Courtney went to Howard University and studied design. I went to Howard and then went into kind of another creative field, but ultimately was always focused on lifestyle, whether that was home, whether that was style, whether it was food, so I think the world just kind of converged to bring us to this space, and we're really excited about it.
Well, we're super excited for you.
Thank you.
Yes, we cannot wait to see. I feel like, the space needs more of us in it. And so I'm excited to see that. But you guys, why work together? Like there's so many other like different partnerships you guys could be doing, whatever else. Like why work together? What about this relationship makes it feel special?
I mean, I think at this point I can't get rid of her. Right? Like, what is this? No, I mean, I think this is actually like the second time Courtney and I have really like dived into business together. Yeah. A few years ago, I guess more than a few, we had a lifestyle blog called Fly Coast to Coast, because I, at the time, was living in Los Angeles and Courtney was in New York. So, we were just killing it on both coasts. That's what we were doing, and so we loved doing it. But I think at the time, we were both really trying to figure out what we wanted to do in the world and how we could leave our mark. And now, almost like a decade later, I think that we've been able to do that. And so for us, it just always feels natural, I think, to be together. We grew up in a very large family. And so, some people, when you have large families, like we luckily had friends, but people in big families don't have friends. Like they don't have to. So like, what I mean? It was like us, our cousins, we were all together all the time. So I think just being with one another is very natural for us, very easy. So it didn't feel like something we had to try hard to do,
It wasn't really forced.
No.
And I think that's why it's interesting that it did happen so organically. Right. It wasn't something we were necessarily like overly seeking out, but because we're naturally good together, we have a good chemistry, it was seen by other people. And that's how the opportunity arose.
Yeah.
I love that. Me too, because I'm an only child and
oh, bless you.
Can't relate at all.
I'm right. I'm an only child but I do make friends easy. All my friends are like, oh, you pick up a new friend? I was like, yeah, I did, girl. I did.
Right.
I be making friends everywhere because I was like, well, I'm not about to be sitting here alone and not talking.
Right.
And but I've always wanted siblings, and that's why I told you guys, I was like, I was like, you right there. You're gonna be my friend.
Yes, I like you. Hey, we're friends.
Yes. We're friends. It's done. Yes, and I you on the big family thing because I'm like one of 4, and it's like, sometimes you want that. Okay, how was it if I was an only child? What would that be?
Right. If I could just have my own space, what would that be like?
And immediately I'm like, never mind. That's probably not.
No.
That's probably
not. Wouldn't work out. You were looking for people.
Yes. I'm curious too, because I love that you all started in a sense from a blog post. like, you know, the idea, or not even a blog post, starting a blog, like you said, fly coast to coast. Like sometimes folks have that first idea or first kind of venture for themselves. They're thinking through, this is the thing that's going to take off. This is the thing that's going to catapult me to whatever. And you said like 10 years later, this HGTV series is actually your calling and something that you guys should be doing together. Like, what are some of the skills or the lessons learned, things that you're taking away sometimes, like either consciously or unconsciously, from the fact that you've worked together in the past that you plan to apply to your series?
I would definitely say patience is one thing, and then communication for sure. I think that patience, because just to reiterate, like this has been something, not specifically our show has been 10 years in the making, but just our careers. And I think we're now really starting to just see the fruits of all of the seeds that we've sown over the years. And like those are now starting to come into fruition, and we're just in the beginning of that even. So the patience of it all to really see things through and to really know that you are moving in the right direction. I think you have to have that confidence to just know, like, this is what we feel like we should be doing, and we're in a good space. And so let's watch how this grows. Let's see what we can get from this. And then the communication. I mean, we're siblings. So I feel like even that, like, you communicate differently with my sister coworker than I would with just another coworker. So just learning how to address things, like not in a sibling way, like, okay, now I have to talk to you like my coworker. Like, okay, this is what we have to do. Like, we got to figure this out. It's not working. Or sometimes you just have to like take the professional hat off and be like, girl,
that wasn't
like, okay, it's a lie. It's a mess. Right. So let's step to the side. Let's figure out what we doing, and then we could go back in and like let these people know what they do. So I feel like a lot of times that's something that was our strong suit, is that we could kind of take off our work hat and just be like,
do you see what I see? Do you see?
And just know, like, that ain't, you gotta figure it out because we're us not on the same page, or like with other people, with each other, whatever it was. So for me now.
I think that those are great. Communication is certainly the key. I think just trusting ourselves, right? I would say, like, when we first started the blog, we were among kind of a group of people, you know, fashion blogging and lifestyle blogging was really in its infancy. And so I think trusting that, you know, we are visionaries and we can kind of see things as they come. And so I think being able to know that we can trust ourselves. And sometimes when you get into a situation where you're working in television or you're working with big names or, you know, large networks, you can feel like, you know, a small fish in a very big pond. But I think that Courtney and I are very confident in who we are, and we're very confident in our skill level. And so while we always want to learn and get better at whatever we do, we're also okay with saying, like, no, that's not going to work. You know what I mean? Or like, that's not okay for us, because we've had the opportunity to be out in the world and kind of work for ourselves. You know, and as I said, we didn't go seeking it. It came to us, which means that we obviously know what we're doing. So, you know, we don't have to feel, you know, any imposter syndrome, even if it's kind of easy to feel that way. You know, we're not here just because we're cute. You know, that's a plus. So.
Just like an added bonus,
you know.
It's so funny because when Courtney, when you were saying and talking about the patience, I was like giggling a little bit on the inside because I knew she was gonna say, listen, I always be calling her out because I swear Akila, and well, we both have this problem. We're both trying to run before we can walk, you know, like we're always
I would rephrase that. We are
Akila said, no, we're not. She got it.
I see the future. I see the vision. I see the goal.
You got the foresight. I see you, Akila.
Exactly.
Right. And then I'd be like, girl, we got to bring it back because we not there yet, girl. Like, it's just always just such a learning experience when you're working with a friend or a sister. Obviously, entrepreneurship, when you're in a business, there's things that you're like, okay, I see a goal. Like, for example, like we want to be on a TV network, right? Like we see that vibe. But then it's like, okay, well, let's pitch. We ready. We are episode 11. Let's pitch the show. And it's like, wait, but are you ready? Like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like, it's doing that experience and then learning from it and being like, oh, okay, wait, maybe we're not ready. Like maybe we're not as factor. So the patience factor is really important. And I'm, you know, glad that you brought that up because it is.
Yeah, and it's not easy because I think you also have to like be okay with that. And that's a learning experience in and of itself. You know, like I'm 32 now, but like when I first got to New York at 22, I was trying to do everything. And it was just like, sis, you just graduated from college. Like,
Right.
that's probably not the job you should be applying for because you're not qualified. like we love that you're a visionary. We love that you see where you're going. But maybe 5 years from now, then you can be in that position. So I think just like being okay with I am growing and I am learning and I am gonna get there. But like I say this all the time, like you can never replace hard work. Like I don't care what Instagram told you. You can't replace the hard work factor of it all. So
I mean,
put your head down and get to work.
y'all are just spitting like gems right now.
Listen.
I also, Courtney, or Leslie, I should say, like, I think you're the one who mentioned it. The fact that, you know, you didn't seek this out in a sense, like you were approached. Let's dial back there. Like, how did that happen? What happened there? And why do you think you two in particular were the ones that were approached? Because you're not the only ones, you know, oh my gosh, I can design a place, I can curate a lifestyle, I can, you know, really create at home. And yet y'all two, we can see it, but tell me why the day to say, you know what, we're going to approach you and it's time to do it.
Yeah, I think it's like a multi-part question, right? I think obviously Courtney and I probably both have thought, what, like us? You know what I mean? Like there are several people that could do this, right? And so the one thing that I want to say to that is just because an opportunity comes to you doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to get their opportunity or that someone else wasn't deserving. It just means that this opportunity belonged to you. You know, and so that's something that I think I've had to learn in my career, you know, going. So I started off doing, you know, digital kind of creation and that part. And so that's how I even got into the entertainment space. You know, when I left Howard and left college, my plan was to go to law school. You know, I was not trying to be on the television. But, you know, it's so funny because growing up my whole life, people would always say to me, girl, you need a TV show. Girl, you need a TV show. And I would always just kind of like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. And, you know, it's just funny how like God will kind of plant seeds in your life, whether you pay attention to them or not. And so, you know, when the time came and it was like, I was doing digital creation, I had a web series that I was doing called Let Leslie Tell It. That kind of forayed itself into a cooking show that I was doing with a co-host, a friend of mine called Butter and Brown. And that went from being, you know, on YouTube for 6 episodes to being picked up for television, you know, but again, that was all in relationship building. And then, you know, that just kind of introduced me to this production company. And so I had auditioned with them for a show. The show ended up not getting greenlit or picked up, but they were very impressed by me and were kind of like, we've been trying to figure out how to work with you for 2 years. So to kind of, that's a blessing. So to put a pin in that is me just letting people know, whatever you're doing, do it in excellence because you don't know who's watching, but somebody always is. Always. You know what I mean? And whether you think people are on your head or not, somebody behind that scenes is like, did you see somebody? Did you see what she did today? You know what I mean? Like, and it could be just bumping them gums or it can be positive, but whatever it is, they're going to talk anyway, make it worth their while. And so that's something that I always, you know, make sure that, honey, the people are watching, let me give them a show. So, you know, I feel like that's what I carry with me as I go. And in that, I think I'm paying attention to what people need and what people like. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes from really working in publicity. You know what I mean? So when you've worked in that world, you can kind of say like, I know what people are leaning to. I know what they're gravitating to. I know what's going to get their attention. And that's really helped me in being kind of like a digital creator. So when it, you know, came time and quarantine happened and, you know, COVID was, you know, the shock that all of us, I think kind of, you know, just dealt with and needed, you know what I mean? But I said, wow, what can I do with this opportunity? And the thing was when quarantine began and when COVID hit, you know, it was scary for everyone. It was very frightening. But the one thing I said through it was, I'm going to come out of this with an opportunity. And I kept saying from the beginning, I'm going to say maybe in April, I'm going to prosper in the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I remember, and I was saying that the whole time, like, I was like, you know, we can easily fall into fear. We can easily fall into depression. We can allow our anxiety to run wild. But for me, I was like, I'm going to prosper in this pandemic. And, you know, I did, because that was the words of my mouth. That was the faith. That was, you know, me saying like what I wanted. Courtney moved back here in May. Next thing I know, I'm getting an email and they were like, hey, we've been trying to find you. We saw the Instagram live you did with your sister. We contacted your old agent, and I was like, what?
I actually, wait, because you skipped over.
Oh, okay.
So pin in that part, because again, so Leslie's watching the pulse of things. Things are happening. My life is like, I'm in New York. I'm moving to LA. I just want to get there. I can't figure out what's going on. Oh my God, I just quit my job. Now we're in a pandemic. Bitch, what? Like, I was confused.
I'm like, we're gonna be broke.
I was like, wait, what? So Leslie was like, I think that we should talk to people about interior design right now, because everybody's in the house and people don't know what to do. And I was like, Instagram Live isn't really my thing. And so she was like, oh, it's fine. I already actually asked Twitter if they would like to sit down and talk with a Black designer about some work from home tips and how to rearrange your space. And everyone said, great, and we should do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and make us a flyer and we're gonna do this Instagram Live. And this is literally like 2 days.
I don't ask a lot of permission. I just tell people where to show up.
So,
Wait, hold
but you need people like that though.
Courtney,
But you need
listen,
Wait.
let me, you guys, I've been listening to this whole interview, and even when we did our little pre-chat, I'm like, Leslie is Akilah, I am Courtney.
Like, it's hilarious, actually, how
Like, we're
sync.
so much alike, it's ridiculous.
I love it. And that's why I'm
I
like,
love it. I love it because you need people that kind of like match your energy, that you're compatible with, but then will also like push you in different ways. So there may be ways that you push Akilah, that she pushes you, and that's what makes you guys a really good force together, right? Like that's the chemistry. So I feel like she kind of was like, okay, no, we're gonna do this, and I was like, okay. You don't know who's watching, and so fast forward 2 months.
I'll pick it back up from there. Thank you, Courtney. So, I forced Courtney out of her comfort zone. I was like, girl, you gotta get your ass from out of there. Excuse me, bleep it. Yes. I was like, you gotta get your ass up. We're not doing that same old stuff. I was like, you are moving to LA, girl. Don't you worry. And the whole time, Courtney was a little nervous. She's like, girl, I can quit my job. What am I gonna do? And I was like, you have skills. You have talent. I was like,
I knew I was starting a company, so like I knew what I was doing.
Right.
Yeah,
but like I had
want to follow up with that
idea.
with the job situation too. We could
yes.
until after.
It was like, 2020, like this was my year. Like it was 2020. It was the start of a new decade. I finally was like, I've been 10 years in the business. It's time for me to move home and like start my business. January, y'all, I quit my job and had 2 months of trips booked. I came back in March to a pandemic, like literally had been gone living my best life. I was like, I'm 31, I work for myself now. Literally landed back in America on March 13th. Donald Trump said no more international flights.
Well, I'm glad you come back home.
I barely made get on it. And then we're in a pandemic. Like literally, I was like, what?
Right.
What? Patience.
How did you finagle your way with your business in the pandemic? Like, since you were gone for those 2 months and you had put probably things on pause, and now you pick back up, we're in a pandemic. How are you able to like get clients, get business, draw it up, okay, before you left, did you have was it already like started, or was it like
So my company had been in business, but I had been just freelancing for myself, like after work, just basically, it was definitely still my side hustle. So in January, I think I had some existing clients and had just done like a photo shoot to get both of those projects photographed, like my first 2 projects that I had fully done myself. So in my mind, it was like, I'll launch my website like March 1st. And then at least I already have some connections, some people that I'm talking to. Between January and February, we went to Africa. Yeah, we went to Africa, and I reconnected with Leslie's best friend, who I've known like my whole life, and her husband had just bought a home. So they were like, yes, we want to talk to you when we get back. So that's in January. Another friend of mine had reached out about doing some design for him. So I had 2 projects that I knew were potential, but no one had signed a contract with me. Nobody had really committed their coins to me. Like that wasn't a thing yet. So it really was me saying like, I am fully stepping out on faith right now. And like, I know that I've been doing this long enough that I'm going to figure it out. But if these 2 projects don't commit in March, I guess I'm gonna go find some other ones. Like that was really how I started.
Mm-hmm.
And so in March, I just started with those 2 projects, and I closed my books out with 10 clients at the end of 2020. So it was just tenacity, to be honest, too. Like we were working on the show, but also like I have always had a mentality that if I don't work, I don't eat.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, moving back to LA was even, I needed to respark my hustle. Like I just felt like I've been working for 10 years. I kind of had made it to a really good point in my career. I was like, I'm making good money. Like I'm 31. Like I'm doing it. Like now I'm bored. Like, you know, like I need something else. I just feel like I've gotten pretty comfortable in like asking for promotions and asking for raises. I've now gotten comfortable in doing that. So now the next thing that's going to make me uncomfortable is to do this myself and to not have a backing. And so I always knew that that was what I wanted to do. But when you get comfortable and you finally can afford to go on vacation and go shopping every weekend and do all this stuff, you're like,
why would I
leave
my job? Right.
What? Am I not to quit my job? So I think for me, it was like, my sister has always led the way in entrepreneurship, and like we both went to Howard. So I think those were things that were just kind of always instilled in us and like drilled in us to think bigger picture. So I knew that was the path, but I had no idea how I was going to navigate it. And make no mistake, I'm definitely still navigating. Sis is only like a year and a half in. So, you know, like I'm still working it out and figuring it out day by day, but having conversations like this with people and like having, you know, my sister to lean on and to talk to and to be able to help me navigate is definitely all a part of the process.
Yeah.
Patience.
I want to be super clear with like what we're talking about and like what your business is. So you went to school for interior design, and then it sounds like you got a corporate job in interior design in New York. And then after you worked in the industry for 10 years in New York, you moved back to LA, and that's when you started your own interior design business.
Yes.
So she had her firm. It was like she was doing projects on the side, but she always worked in corporate interior design. So she was working at other people's firms, at other, you know, interior companies, you know, doing projects and obviously still doing everything. But, you know, on the side, it was like, okay, let me help somebody get this together, or let me do that. But finally, you know, in 2020, she was like, I need to step from underneath the corporate umbrella of bringing other people's, you know, kind of moving their firms and their visions along. And I can do this on my own, you know? And then I think that's even too, like where the show kind of like picked up, because then when she made that decision and it was like, okay, I'm getting back to LA, I made it to America by the skin of my teeth, you know, like, you know, okay, I'm back, you know? And then she was like, I'm about to move, I'm gonna drive across the country, we're gonna do it. And I, you know, at that time, you know, I work in Hollywood, so everything had kind of come to a full stop. You know, there was no going to work for me. And I was just like, oh no, bitch, we gotta be quiet. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, what are we gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, right? Listen, everybody was like, bitch, wet. You know, and again, I'm blessed. I'm thankful that I have a husband that works, that he, you know, makes very excellent money. He's doing what he's doing, you know, but I have 3 kids. We were like, we're trying to move, you know, I'm like, you know, so I have to stay creative. And, you know, to Courtney's point, like I've been working for myself since, I mean, what, 2010, 2011, you know what I mean? Like I've never had a full corporate job, you know? So yeah, thank you. You know, that's a, you know, a blessing and a curse. But you know, I've never had that experience, you know, because I've always been like, yo, I just can't do it with y'all. Like, y'all got it. You know, so you know,
the themes here too that you guys are saying, like, you know, I pick up on the whole relationships piece, obviously with each other, with your corporate job, with yourself, to say, I'm gonna do something. And now, even kind of going back to the fact that you have that Instagram live after doing it, or after posting your relationships on Twitter, to then have someone see it and say, you know what, I see something here. I'm gonna get into you, Leslie and Courtney at this point, to take it to the next level. Now we know in Hollywood, it's one thing for folks to say, we're gonna get in contact, let's talk, you know, I see the vision, to it actually being executed and actually happening. Take us through that journey of saying, I trust you and I totally see it and I agree with you no, we're actually gonna have a show in the fall.
Right.
At the end of the day, like not everyone has that opportunity where people are like coming to them to be like, hey, we like to put you on TV and give you a whole show on one of the biggest design networks. Like that is like one, like a million. You know what I'm saying?
And even if it does happen, then it's kind of like, you don't hear from them. You know, but
Happened. So but I also, just to add on to her question too, like, was there a pitch? Was there a deck we had to put together? Was there any of that? I know probably not, but how would you present yourself? Like, are you giving stats in your media kit? Like, if someone wanted to know, like, how do I get on a network? What do I need to bring with me to be prepared?
So the first thing I just want to preface by saying is that favor is not fair all the time. You know, I know that I have favor in my life, you know what I mean? And I walk through my life like I do. You know, I think I've always, for the most part, walked into places like I own them, because I feel like you ain't gonna tell me I don't. So, you know what I mean? And if you do, that means you're not the person that owns it. So I'm gonna go talk to them. You know what I mean? So I think with that, you know, again, it was just putting out quality things. And, you know, when you're working in the digital space, the internet is busy, it's loud, it's a lot of noise. And so the thing is, how do you cut through the noise, right? And I think sometimes the reason people get lost in that is because they're trying so hard to stand out, and they're trying so hard to do something different, when it's just be yourself, right? And this is where that buzzword authenticity kind of comes in, you know, and it gets tired and like, what does being authentic mean? You know what I mean? But it's just like, be you. You know, because we can see through when you're not being you. I can tell when somebody has picked up on what's working for someone else, and they're trying to take that coat off and put it onto them. And I'm like, you don't even look comfortable. It looks big on you. You look silly, right? Like, I don't like it. Take it off. You know what I mean? Like, I can see that, right? And so I think in that, it was kind of like, when they came, because they already knew what to expect from me, you know what I mean? They trusted that they would get that in Courtney, you know what I mean? And I have no problem bigging up somebody else, right? Especially when I know that I can trust them to do well. You know what I'm saying? So this is what I say, don't let me put my name on your back and you get out there acting a fool, right? Because I'm gonna snatch that shit back very quick. I'm gonna be like, I don't even know them like that. Like,
I said we was cool.
I said it was cool, and I don't know you, right? Like, relax. You know what I mean? But because she was already out there doing stuff, and I knew she could stand on her own 2 feet, it was no problem for me to say, hey, we're gonna talk to Courtney. And when they came calling, you know, they're like, we saw this, we saw that. Have you and your sister ever worked together? You know, also, don't be afraid sometimes. Just, you know, throw on a little extra, a little bit. Trust yourself to sprinkle it on and fill it up, right? So I said, not in this capacity, but absolutely. How can we help you? You know what I mean? What could we do for you?
What were you looking for?
What were you looking for? What do you need from us? You know what I mean? Like, and so when that happened, it instantly was like, okay, we're gonna get on a Zoom, we're gonna get on a video chat, and we just wanna, you know, kind of do a little interview. So we're like, okay. Courtney was a little nervous, you know, but Courtney has acted before. She went to school to act, you know, in high school. So she's done this. So even in that, she was just kind of like, girl, what do they want? And I just told her, don't do nothing extra, be you. You don't have
That
to
was definitely the one thing. She was like, please just be yourself.
Just be yourself. Don't get on here and turn on your Disney voice. And, you know, next thing I know, it's an audition. You know what I mean? So she did wonderfully. I think they saw our chemistry. They saw that we could talk to one another, right? But also be authoritative and speak about what we know. You know, and when you have some sort of commitment to what you're talking about, when you know what you're saying, you know what I mean? When you can pull from actual situations and talk about them, people can trust you. You know what I mean? Like, be authoritative in what you want to teach people about. And when you can command that presence, they don't even ask too much from you. You know what I mean? Like, so no, they didn't ask for media kits. They didn't, you know, ask for all that. We got on the video, they shot it up the chain. And the next thing we know, they were like, okay, they came to us with a slight premise. We talked about that, but through kind of the audition reel and the tape, they pulled something else that we had said, which was Courtney and I always talk about having your house, people's houses are a struggle. And so we're like, this is a struggle space, boo. Like, you're trying to do too much. You gotta pick your struggle. Which one is it gonna be? Right? You can't have a toilet, bathroom, kitchen, living room, bedroom. Come on now, figure it out. So from there, they took that and threw away their premise, made that the premise of our show. And instantly, you know, sent that up the chain to HGTV, and they were like, oh my God, who are these two, you know, people that you just found randomly on the internet? You know, but again, as I always say, my name is being spoken in rooms that I don't even know about only good things. You know, those are things that I say. People talk about affirmations and stuff. That's something I say every day and have been saying since I was 21 years old, and I'm 36, Jesus.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Church. Yeah.
I honestly, what I'm really hearing is just like coming in with confidence and knowledge of yourself.
Do that.
Not to be afraid of your talents and what it is that you possess and what it is that you have within yourself, because clearly you got this far enough in your career on your own.
Yes.
And to just always come ready. I think Akilah also said to me one day, she was like, we come with excellence. We work in excellence, because there was something we did, and it was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was postable. It wasn't like the best. And she was like, we work in excellence. And you know what I did? I wrote that on my wall. I said, we work in excellence.
And that's it.
Claim it. Because if you see it and you say that's what you do, that's how you're gonna move.
Right.
Yes.
You have to put those things out there.
Definitely do. And I love that you all do that. But like, let's talk about the design aspect now. So you have the show coming out. You were able to pitch, or at least just, like you said, present yourself in a way that's like you are all day, every day. What are those individual styles?
Yes, thank you. I'm so happy you went to that question. That was my next question.
Excellent. Yeah. So, Courtney, Leslie, what are your individual styles? And we'll see if it mixes and blends a little bit, or if y'all about to be two different people.
Yes.
Two different people.
You see what's happening here?
You know, it all comes together.
Yeah, like there's similarities and overlaps, and then there are like slight differences. I am definitely more of a modern contemporary designer. I definitely like the functionality and flow of spaces. So I like things to just make sense and have a purpose. But I also really love just clean lines and textures. Like I love to layer textures in spaces. One of my biggest things is that I like people to feel comfortable in their homes. And so even though I do lean modern in my designs, I call it femme modern, because you can always tell that it definitely has like a woman's touch in spaces. Quite a few of my clients are men. And I think that when you come in, there's just like an element about their spaces that they're like, oh, I was wondering who picked that out. Like, you know, so comfort for me, functionality, form, and just layered simplicity.
Yeah.
Leslie, before you go, Courtney, I want to explain a little bit about what modern is, or like what exactly does that mean? Like what I think about when you say modern is like those houses that are like boxy. Like,
it's a museum.
I know.
And then
it gets such a bad rap.
You go into the house and it's super like mod, like white walls, and then like one red couch and like one circle thing over
one
here.
light.
One triangle art piece on the wall. Like that's the vibe of modern. So please explain.
A single line like that.
I will, because I do think that sometimes modern gets a bad rap for being sterile and for being just like overly sleek. But really, modern design is really just clean lines. And so you can have clean modern design that again is layered. So because I like to layer my designs, my spaces aren't sparse and they're not scarce because I like to fill up a space. So really modern is more about the overall aesthetic. I think sometimes people think in any style, like when you think traditional, you think of like floral wallpaper, but like that's not really true. Think it's more so about like the shapes of furniture. Like what do the legs look like? What do the backs look like? What colors are probably incorporated? Like that will lead me more towards a style. I tell Leslie this a lot, like when we're talking about spaces that I'm going to design for you and I'm asking you like what you like, I don't want you to say like, so I really like that pink chair. I want you to tell me like, I really like when I go to this restaurant and like all of the furniture blends together, but all the pieces are different. I like when I walk into that lobby and the walls are wood, but it's not dark and cavernous. So that means you like the warmth of it, but you still want it to be light and airy. Like when you speak to an interior designer, or just for everybody out there listening, as you're designing a space, like always remember the ambiance that you want and the aesthetic that you're going for.
Think about how you're gonna feel.
How do you feel when you're in the space? It's all about feeling, it's all about a mood, and it's all about a vibe that you're creating. And it's less about the elements and the pieces that you're shopping for. Because once you set the vibe and you get that ambiance that you want, you'll fill it in with pieces automatically because things will just make sense and they'll flow.
You know, Courtney, I really feel like the vibe I'm getting from you right now is like you're more like neutral with a little.
Yes. But there's always something. Right.
I need to join.
I see you. Hey, girl. See you.
Excuse me, why are you trying to jump ship? I don't like what I'm hearing. Leslie, how about we go to you?
Right. Thank you. And to me. You know, and it's so funny because I think naturally people would assume that like my style is probably like kind of vibrant and big and like all these things. But I very much want my space to feel luxurious, but I also want it to feel like, you know, comfortable. I want to be able to come in and it's elevated, right? But I still want to be able to live in it. So I like to say, you know, I like luxury living, right? I want to live here, but I want you to know that my shit was probably expensive. So be careful. Take your shoes off before you step on my carpet, okay? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, you can drink out of that glass, but set it down kindly and put it on the coaster because my table costs a lot of money. Don't act crazy up in here. You know what I mean? So when I'm feeling things, I get a lot of inspiration from hotels. Akila,
I know what's hard. I'm like, listen, give me Hollywood Regency love. That is
yes, baby. Okay, I like to feel like money. You understand? Okay, so
I don't
know. Right, like y'all are relax, you know. So I want people to feel instantly when they come in my space, like, ooh, it feels rich in here. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean that it has to be gaudy. That doesn't mean that it has to be like kind of tacky or screaming and blinging all over the place. Because that kind of style is not really for me. Y'all can keep that diamond chandeliers. I don't want it. Please do not put a mirror backing on everything. It's bugging me. Like, stop it. You know what I mean? Like, but I love the freshness. Like, I want beautiful candles. I love fresh flowers. I love furniture that looks beautiful, but it's also comfortable. I don't want to come in, you know, and I sit on your couch and then my ass is hurting 2 minutes later. Like, why am I sitting here? Why did you buy this? It's uncomfortable. You know, so I love that. I get a lot of inspiration from hotels. I get a lot of inspiration from bars. Those are things. I travel a lot. That's like something I love to do. So I get a lot of inspiration from, you know, just places in the world where I go. But, you know, I know how I like to feel when I walk into a space, and I like things to feel lavish. I like them to feel beautiful. I want people to feel enveloped by a room, you know, so those are the kind of things that I like. But, you know, I just want people to come into a space and feel like, man, I'm going to have the time of my life. I'm going to be treated well when I come in this space. I'm going to feel good while I'm here. You know, everybody wants to feel that. And whether they know it or not, you know what I mean? The moment that you experience a luxury, you know, experience in your life, you never forget it. And that's what I want people to feel when they walk into spaces that I've put my touch on.
That is so true. You know, I have a little mini obsession with watching AD home tours on YouTube.
Love
Yeah.
And it becomes like when you get into the guilty pleasure where it's like the next one, the next one, the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching one day and David Diggs from Hamilton.
Oh, their house is beautiful.
Oh, listen, that house is like almost
It's
like
gorgeous.
a house. So I'll explain it for the people who haven't seen it.
Yes.
This is really like my dream kitchen because when I get my little, I think, when I buy my condo, when I get my house, like this is how I want my kitchen. I want the emerald green cabinets with the gold accents, the like sink, like it's not
Yes.
Little gooseneck faucet.
I want marble top, like countertops. And in David's house, now this wasn't something that I would have normally picked for myself, but it works so well in their space that I almost was like, maybe I would be open to it. They have a lot of different, they have a runner at their stairs, and it's all different colored rugs, all different patterns, and they're all like woven together. It is quirky, but she also has like these coffee bags.
Yeah, the bags.
She like traveled or something, and she on the wall to up the stairs as well. So it gave it a kind of like a warm vibe. And then underneath their staircase, there was glass, like a glass door, or blind killer.
Yeah.
To a record, like a
room for him, like a listening room. It was like a small studio space. It was beautiful because it was very eclectic, but you saw that it was still, you know, luxurious. It felt beautiful. You know, it felt like to me, it felt like almost a hippie hotel that you would have seen in like the late 60s, early 70s, probably in like South America. But it was delightful. But I think it spoke to who they were as people too. You know what I mean? Right. They are both. Yeah, their designer did a wonderful job. They did. Right.
So, okay.
They worked with the designer.
This is one thing I always like to remind people. I think sometimes the question a lot of times arises, but why do I need to hire an interior designer? I have my own style. This is my space. I know how I want it to look. But even in the way that you spoke about that space and like all of those things that you loved about it, that you're like, I probably would have never done that or put that in my space, but like, it looks amazing. Those coffee bags as art like look amazing because their designer understood them as people. And she drew from their travels, from their personalities, from the way that they live together to the way that they like to live separately. Right. And she wove all of that seamlessly into every room of their space. Yeah. And that's the importance of hiring a professional because they know how to do that. A part of studying design was, I learned materials, lighting, but like the psychology and the sociology of it all is really what ties it all together.
There's a science to it.
It's a science. Right. You know, like Leslie was saying, you want to come into a space and you want to feel warm, you want to feel luxurious. That's how you want to feel. But it's all about like taking those elements from personalities and figuring out like, what can I drop in here that feels personal to them, speaks to other people when they see it, but also makes them feel comfortable and feel at home.
It's the same way when you wear an outfit, you know what I mean? And before you open your mouth, somebody usually can probably tell what kind of person you are, right? So when people walk into your home, you want them to know who lives there and who you are even before you have to open up your mouth. You know what I mean? And so we knew exactly who David and his girlfriend are before we even like heard them speak. You know, and granted, we know them as actors and actresses and like they're beautiful in their work, but we're looking at them, we're like, oh, they're fun. They probably host a lot of parties. You know what I mean? They're clearly Black. You know what I mean? Like they're clearly like some Latin elements into their lives. Yeah. Like we just understood who they were as people, even looking into their space without ever having to speak to them. You know what I mean? So you could watch that interview and be like, oh, I know them. I would hang out with them. Exactly. Whereas you might look at somebody else's house and be like, oh, I would never go to their house. They don't got good snacks.
Right. I 100% agree with you. I 1000% when I get to that space in my life, I 1000% want an interior designer, Courtney, Leslie, how you doing? To
you know where to find us, girl.
Okay, to help me kind of curate my space because now listen, I plan my little party upstairs right now, and bare minimum, little basic, little balloons, little cupcakes, little floaties in the floor. And let me tell you, like the vibe. Thank God my dad has a nice backyard, but like that is so.
The ambiance
that you're not thinking about that go into a space that an element. Like I told you, the room that I did in quarantine, it's a better vibe than what it was, but it ain't where it needs to be.
But it ain't what it need to be.
And it's hard because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how do I create a bigger space in a really small square room? Like, how do I do
Where do you draw that inspiration from?
I don't know. I know what I like. Like, I go to Akila's house. In her bedroom, she has the frames, but it's like all different, like pop art, like frames around her TV. Super dope. She has like this, like her style is so cool, and the fact that she was able to kind of like do it herself.
Yeah.
I never do that because I would go and I'd be like, "That's cute, but does it go with this? Does that look good?"
Yeah.
I was, and some people have it. Yeah, like I think some people kind of have it and they lean into it, and then some people, you know, can feel kind of lost. Because I felt that way at times, right? I've been kind of like, oh, okay, how can I do this? But when it comes to like putting on clothes, you know, I can very easily be like, okay, wait, I can get this together. Hold on. You know what I mean? I can make that rag look beautiful. You know, so it's just kind of like, it's the same way, you know, with your house. You can, you know, once you kind of learn and you figure things out and you know what you need to do, it becomes easy. But it's a study and it's a practice, you know, but that's why they're professionals. You know what I mean? Like, that's why you call people. You know, we can't all do everything. Stay in your lane, honey.
Exactly. Well, you know what? There's folks from this episode alone, like you understand how do you potentially pitch for yourself, like build your relationship, build your level of excellence to get in the doors and the spaces that you want. But for folks who may not want to do this on the big screen, but still enjoy interior design, still enjoy that aspect of putting together spaces and creating that level of luxury. How do you personally work with clients? Like, what are some either problems when it comes to working with clients and, you know, curating that home, that space for them to actually live in, and just any type of anecdotes that you can share when it comes to working with clients, either the good, bad, the ugly.
The good and the bad.
We want the ugly.
We want the ugly. Because I'm sure there's so many situations where you're like, dang, if they would just be quiet, like I could get this space in 5 minutes. Like they want to change everything every 5 minutes.
Level of trust.
Listen.
You mentioned.
Tell us.
I'm sure that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think in the way that Leslie and I are communicating with clients for the show is a good mesh of both of our personalities. So I can talk about it by myself and kind of like together because they're a little different. So for the show, we're obviously going into people's homes who aren't necessarily familiar with us and don't know us. So our main thing is going into the space to make them feel comfortable and kind of just say, how do you use your space? Like, that's the first question. What are you doing here? So like, do you use this room to always watch TV? Do you hang out in your bedroom? Do you mostly hang out in your kitchen? Like, what are the most important spaces in here? And then what about your space isn't working? So like, what don't you like about your living room or your kitchen or your bedroom? Okay, so now we've identified that. Now we need to figure out like, what is it that you need in this space? So do you lounge and watch TV? So you need a very comfortable sofa. You probably need an ottoman to kick your feet up on. You probably need a side table to put your drink on. Or do you mostly hang out outside and then this living room is a showpiece? So when people walk inside, you just want everything to look pristine and put together in like a magazine cover.
So that they can keep it moving.
Yeah. So I think the main thing for us is like really identifying what people don't like in their space, what they're striving for. And then, okay, you brought in an interior designer. What is your goal from us? Like at the end of this project, when we finish up this scope of work, what do you want to have gained from this? More space? Does that mean we're doing a renovation? A brand new space? Are we doing a renovation? Or just, I have all the pieces to start working on this room, but to your point, Ebony, I don't know now what to do with all those things. Like, I love my chair, I love my couch, I love all my art, but can you help me curate it and just tell me where to hang it and where to put it, how to do a space plan? So we really just want to figure out like what the needs are and then set the goals for how we get you out of the struggle and into the satisfactory part.
And I think when you do that too, some of the problems you encounter with that, because even if people tell you, hey, we don't really use this space or we don't know how to use it, right? And then what the problem you usually kind of encounter with people is that they don't trust you to get it done, right? Because they're kind of like, well, I know I brought you here to do it. I know I called you, but I also want to tell you how I want you to do it. And you're like, well, baby, if you was doing it, it would have been done. It's not done.
You're not doing it.
You're not doing it.
It's not giving what it was supposed to give. Okay.
You know? So I think the large issue that you experience is people don't trust. People don't trust you. You know what I mean? You come into their space and they're kind of like, all right, now, this is my house. Now, Courtney, I would say, is much more gentle with people. She's very like, listen, you can't just be talking about people. I said, girl, if I go in there and shit up, then I'm going to say it's and she'd be like, Leslie, just say stuff. I'm like, all right, I'll say it nice.
She always has to do this with me.
She'd be like, Leslie, that was that grandmama's art. And I'm like, well, shit, granny can't paint. Period. Like, what you mean? Put it in the back. Like, is she gone? R.I.P. R.I.P. to this ugly work too.
I'd be like,
don't say that.
Perhaps we can put it in another room.
Like, yeah.
That's literally R.I.P. Maybe we can move that to the back part of the
I'm
house.
in the back, like,
where no one really goes.
It's somebody else's house. Get it out. So I think that's the thing that you come across. You know, people don't trust you.
Oh, yeah.
I think too, sentimental value is hard for people. you know? So I think that when you come into a space where we can tell, even if someone doesn't say automatically like, oh, this means a lot, you can tell when something means a lot to someone, right? And so you're kind of like, you know, me and Courtney will know, I kind of hit her with the elbow and we'll know we got to say that because that means a lot to them. Go on and measure it because we can't get rid of that. You know what I mean? Like that meant a lot, you know? And so there are certain things that you just have to pick up on people when they're talking. And, you know, I think too, probably dealing with, especially if you're with couples, dealing with their personality, their different styles.
Yeah, couples are always interesting.
You know what I mean?
Because you rarely find couples that really are like very aligned on their style. So that's always funny too, because like then you have this one space that needs to meet the needs of everybody. And it's almost like you come in as like the mediator because they probably called you because they can't.
Because he wants a big leather chair and she's like,
right. And she's like, so can you just let her know that the recliner is not going to be, it's not going to happen. And then he's like, can you let her know we're not putting up the florals?
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay. Well, maybe we could get
a floral
recliner
on the recliner.
You know, maybe we could meet somewhere in the middle and figure it out.
And then the kids are like, oh God. And, you know. So I think those are the things that you know, people's homes mean a lot to them, right? And so even if they're not the most stylized, even if they're not the most, you know, beautifully decorated, it's still theirs. It still belongs to them. You know, but I think the most joy that we get is when a project is done, right? I love to see like how somebody feels when it's finished. And then they're like, oh my God, I did not like expect that, right? I'm always gonna go for tears. And this is, I tell, please cry. But then if you cry, I'm gonna cry, but I'll be like, oh my God, they loved it. They loved it. Like, and then I'm gonna be touched, you know, and then Courtney's
like, I was like, please don't have people crying here because the camera's going and I'm just trying to make sure I don't look ridiculous.
And I'm gonna be like, oh my God.
Because I have an ugly cry. So Leslie was really like outside, like, okay, when they see it, we're going for tears. Cry. I was like, no, nigga, we're not going. I mean,
you know what? That is exactly you better say it. And you know what? This is what I was waiting for, because part of me is like, we're talking to you and I'm like, I cannot wait for Sister Fixers. You don't understand. I'm already I can't wait.
But Courtney, you better keep it real over there. Okay, don't shy away. Black people telling Black stories. It ain't no big deal. It ain't no.
I was like, we're not going for tears. I was like, because the cameras are on. And I don't really want them seeing me crying in this kitchen.
That's because Courtney, like, listen, if people start crying, you know, you be like, I'm trying to hold it together.
I'm over here like,
this is why I can't do graduations. You don't bring me to no type of anything. If I see somebody cry, even for the smallest thing,
it's over. You
immediately. The waterworks start for me immediately when I see other people crying.
I won't be in attention.
I can't control it.
Can't do it there. I totally get you.
That is,
and I just feel so validated. I'm like, yes, I did.
I want to make sure that we really talk about the significance of what you guys are doing.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
Like, it's insane. I mean, we love HGTV. I love some Property Brothers.
But there's not a lot of us.
But they're not a lot. I don't even know if I can name any prominent. Yeah, you're like, no, the answer is
I was gonna say I'm a white girl.
I just kept thinking Joanna Gaines, but I don't see it at all. But you guys are about to do your thing. You are. It's already, you know, in progress. But it's like, I'm so excited for you. We're so excited for you. Like, just from your own words, what does it truly mean, especially in the wake of, not even the wake of Black Lives Matter, because it's still every day, all day, but you know, in the wake of 2020 and all that it was, and knowing that you guys are all, you know, growing into yourself, securing your own bags, like now are definitely showcasing that on the big screen. Have the talent, have the expertise, but also have the melanin, honey. You are doing it on HGTV. Like, what does that really mean?
Yeah,
like, let's talk about.
There's such a lack of representation on the network, and so for you two to be Black, like, I want to just emphasize
Black capital. We sisters. We not brown. We Black. Yes, we're not people of color. We're Black women.
Black with the K, very emphasized.
Right.
Okay. Like,
black.
How does that feel as Black women, as sisters, to be making such a stance on such a big network?
Wow. It's an honor, you know, to start. I think it's an honor. You know, I think to be the people that this was kind of bestowed upon means a lot, right? It shows a level of trust. It shows a level of confidence in us, to be able to do that. One, for the network, right? Because that's them kind of putting themselves on the line, as they should. I think it's time. But it's them saying, hey, we trust you to do what we couldn't do, right? And what we haven't done, but we trust that you can open the door, right? I think being a Black creator in general always means that you're holding somebody else on your back. And I'm strong enough to do that, so I'm okay with it. I'm okay with being able to say I'm carrying these people with me. I think about our grandfather. He was very creative. He was a singer. He was, worked with his hands. He worked in construction. So I think about him a lot. I think about our grandmother, who cooked all the time. She was always making things in that way. So I think about our family first and giving them, the opportunity to just be able to thrive through us. So I think that's powerful. I then think about Howard. I'm grateful that we're moving and able to serve, in truth and service to America and to the world, to the global community. That's what we were taught. So I'm honored to be able to do that. But ultimately, I just think it's powerful to show that, Black people were brought here to be outside and to create and to make and to do and to work, right? And we toiled and we labored and we died and we cried. And then we were told you can't be outside anymore. You can't create, you can't do things. We were stifled and those creative spaces were taken away from us. And because the world couldn't profit off of it, then they didn't want it. You know what I mean? But that didn't keep us from going out here and making it happen for ourselves. So, I'm proud that we can show, no, we do this too. We have homes, we care about them. You know what I mean? Like even through redlining and people wanting us not to have a home, we were able to get them. We made spaces into the crevices where you didn't want to allow us to be. And nonetheless, we've survived and here we are. So I think it's powerful for us to be in that situation. I think, we're owning it. And I think that one thing we'll do is we'll remain humble because we know, how and why we got here. We didn't get here alone. We didn't get here, because again, somebody just thought, oh, those two are cute. You know what I mean? No, we've been built up by the other Black people and Black women, especially that have come before us. So it's just an honor to be in this space and to carry that onto HGTV and to show people. I mean, it's the third most watched network in America. That's astounding. You know what I mean?
We want to continue to just give you both praises and amazing. And I know
thank you guys.
Fun on this interview, and I know we're trying to move things along because we kind of going over.
No, I understand. Look, you only got an hour.
I really want to ask just one follow-up question with this because I really do feel like it's an important topic because we've had fun but I want to really just dig in a little bit. There, with the whole 2020, the Black Lives Matter movement, wonderful. Do you feel as though there is some type of, I don't want to say like stigma, but there's so much more now, obviously, like more opportunity. People are like, oh, you guys can have Juneteenth off.
You're Black.
Right.
Oh, like let's do a whole Black Lives Matter collection on Netflix and Hulu and this and the Amazon Primes, right? And it's like, now it's like, oh, now we're having, Black people on a design network. We're having Black people on this. So in a way, positive or negative, be honest, like, do you feel like the Black Lives Matter, obviously it has helped, but do you kind of feel like it's almost like the modern version of like affirmative action?
I think so yes, I definitely will acknowledge, and we've talked about this a lot, that 2020 was definitely like this rediscovery of Black people.
Right. As if we were dropped.
As if like we haven't been here this whole time. And again, like we haven't been working or being in creative spaces or whatever spaces that all of a sudden people are very hype about this diversity and inclusion. It's like all of a sudden we now care about diversity and inclusion. Right. And so I think that it was definitely very frustrating to just live through that in 2020. And especially like Leslie talks about this a lot in the blog space and in that lifestyle space. I have been very vocal about it to a lot of my Instagram community because a lot of my followers, yes, are Black, but they're also white. And so that's the space where I really talk about it the most because on my personal page, it's mostly Black people. So I need to talk to the white people about it. And I think that it has been kind of like, oh, wait, this scramble to like find Black talent. And so in the beginning of our conversations, even with the production company, though that may have been a spark that brought more attention to us, and started the conversation, throughout all of our conversations with them, we were so clear about the place that we were coming from and what we were here to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not about to make me no gimmick. Right. That's what we're not gonna do. So this is how we would like for this to go. And this is what we want to showcase to everyone. And we were just really clear about the messaging of the show and just how we were able to show the talent, but also be impactful to other people. Even so much as going to say, as you guys look for people to be on the show for the homeowners, we want to make sure you guys are looking for minorities.
Yeah.
Like, are you looking for Black applicants, Latino applicants, Asian applicants? Like, it can't just be a bunch of white people that you guys are reaching out to, because that also is like, that's what we're trying to shake up here. So that was very important to us. So I think that, yes, I noticed it a lot. And I think I thought about it a lot too with HGTV, the Design Star show that just aired this past season. The girl Carmion Hamilton, that just won. But just her being, a Black woman that just won. And at first I was kind of like, is HGTV kind of like taking this and running with it?
Is that a three-way show that you're referring to, or is it not?
No, so her name is Tiffany Brooks.
Yes.
She actually won the same show, but years ago, she was the winner. And so she's always been in the midst of HGTV, but like, she hasn't had her own show, or like, We've just seen her, she does things, like she clearly works for HGTV and she's doing her thing. Hey sis. But I think that they haven't really given her the platform they could have. Mm-hmm. And so as we're behind the scenes kind of becoming these new Black faces, our show hasn't really aired yet. And so we're just, we're letting people know about it. But Carmion just recently won the Design Star show. So I'm curious as to where that kind of takes her. But it just made me say, at least what I see in it is that there is an intention behind it, and it's a good intention. Mm-hmm. They are recognizing that their network is not diverse whatsoever. And they're having the conversations about it.
And I will give them credit to that.
Yeah,
they've taken
this is an active conversation. Yeah. Like they're like, we know.
Yeah.
And that is like the reason why we want to develop this too. Like, This is also not new, even though you guys are finding out about it. This is clearly like a year going, in the making and just development. So they're being intentional about it. And they're saying like, who are people watching and looking for and being inspired by in this community? So that's why we're not characters coming onto HGTV playing designers. Mm-hmm. This is what we do.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's great, right? Because intentionality matters all across the board. And so from the jump, you can tell if somebody is trying to, kind of put you into this box and they want to be, like a little marionette and you're just kind of a puppet, or if they really do want to hear from you. And I will say, like, there was even a situation in which, like when you're doing contracts and things like that, like hair and makeup and stuff like that is not included, right? But as Black women, I had to go to bat and go to the table and say, we're Black women, we're not going on TV without hair. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not going to happen.
If you thought I was getting on HGTV,
right,
my hair wasn't about to be done.
Right. You know what I mean? But it's like you have to advocate for those things, right? That may not be necessary for other, talent. And again, I'm not blaming them for that. Like, that's not necessary for you, but for us, it is. And so when we're working in these spaces, you have to be able to change the scenes and stuff behind the scenes so that when you look on camera, you look well, because we know that if we went on there looking crazy, then Black folks gonna be like, y'all got these sisters not gonna light us up. They're gonna be like, y'all got these sisters on here looking no damn fool. Look, hair nappy, hairline not, cut right. You know what I mean? Like, you're not gonna have me out here looking like that. And so even, and that's because we know our community, so because we know our community, we can add more authenticity to the show. So they're gonna be like, okay, they really look like this. You know what I mean? Like, even the things you'll see like in the pilot, how we're dressed, we don't look like everybody else. You know what I mean? But that's because we're not everybody else. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think the more diversity you have and the more, regionality you have, and you have things across the board, other people can identify with the shows, and that only broadens the audience. So it's just smarter, to like have other people on TV.
Love that. Agreed. Love that. I mean, the conversation, I just want to put a quick plug for a book for folks who are really interested in the history of all this. I'm starting to read now, like The Color of Law, and we're talking about redlining. You're talking about the history of us, like home ownership and what does that really mean when it comes to present day now to have two Black women talking about homes and curating your space,
owning homes, designing homes.
It's a big deal. So huge. Yeah, so kind of off that, what does creating home mean to each of you?
Creating home. I think creating home for me in particular definitely means creating a safe space. You know, I think again, Courtney spoke earlier about how we grew up, you know, living in 1-bedroom apartments. You know, there were times when we didn't know if we were going to be able to stay. You know, Courtney and I have grown up and we know what eviction looks like. We've, you know, dealt with that. And, you know, our mom and, you know, thank God we've never been on the street. You know what I mean? We've always had a roof, but for me, it just means having a haven. It means having, you know, a safe space, not only for myself, but for my children, for my husband, for my family. You know, and I know that there are a lot of people that can identify with that. So I think in creating home, I just want to make sure that when I cross that threshold, I can feel like, again, like I'm getting a hug. I'm safe here. You know what I mean? I can close the door behind me and leave the world outside. And I know that I can be my full self within these four walls. I would agree. I think for me, creating home is creating a comfortable, safe space for sure. That you can just fully be yourself, that you can kind of let your shoulders down and just breathe easy and know that this is your space to create whatever else it is that you want.
Yes. Absolutely. And you guys, we work so hard to create a safe space for y'all right here to come talk to us, our guests to talk to us, our audience to listen and talk to us as well. We just want to thank you guys again for listening, for tuning in. Please support us and continue to like, subscribe, and comment on our YouTube videos, on Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. You can find us everywhere at the Black Creators Club. You can email us at theblackcreatorsclub@gmail.com. If you guys have leads, stories, people that you think we should interview, let us know, because we are always open. We are always searching for our talent. Always, you know, because we be talent bookers. So we be looking.
Yes.
Okay, so now it's time for the game. We heard Leslie and Courtney talk about struggle rooms. I don't know if y'all got a struggle space in your home, if your whole home or house apartment is a struggle, and you just, you know, you want to be outside because you can't be inside. Whatever that means, we're with Sister Fixers right now, so we want to test their design skills, test what they would do, and give you guys a few little cute things that you can do to help curate your space. So the first option, let's say someone is living in a dorm room, guys. They have a dorm room with a roommate that lives in kind of a spare room, but they kind of want some privacy. If you're trying to decorate or curate a space that's a dorm room, someone who's living at school, like what would you do?
A dorm. Okay, this is gonna be so out of left field. People are gonna be like, girl, what? I say you just don't have your privacy in a dorm room. That is kind of the ideal thing about living in a dorm. I think that you should embrace it. I know this is gonna be like, Courtney's like, but I think that you should embrace it. And I'm a person like, listen, when I went to Howard, I had to live in a triple, okay, my freshman year. All right, honey, and it was real interesting. Shout out to my roommates. Y'all know who y'all are. Bless you. Bless. Bless. But, you know, I would have loved, obviously, to have a little bit of privacy or to, like, not, you know, have people all in my business. But I think that in those moments, you kind of have to embrace it. You know what I mean? Because those are the people that you do develop relationships with. You know, especially if you go to a Black school, you may not have all the room in the world. You know, I had friends that went to school all over the country, and some dorms look very different. You're like, girl, you live in a damn mansion up in here. Like, what? You know, so
listen, I think, I did this actually in one of the
Or
dorms that I had with the roommate. You can rearrange your furniture to create your own space. Mm-hmm. So I remember like swinging my bed so that my headboard was like facing her side of the room. So basically all of my furniture in the room faced the opposite wall. And that's where I had my TV, my desk was like to the back. And we were cool, but it was still kind of like, yeah, like I just kind of want at times to feel like I do have my own space. So it's clearly an open room. Like my desk doesn't go to the ceiling, but I rearranged my furniture to where everything was facing the opposite wall. And she was like, oh, it's kind of like we got our own rooms. I was like, yeah. It is.
I love that. Right. That was such a good idea, because I definitely some experience some interesting things going down with my roommate, because it was in an open room space. You get lit at night and things be going down. Honey, I was like, oh, this ain't.
Exactly. You be like, oh. Because I ain't gonna call my old roommate out, but it just used to be a lot going on her side of the room.
Right.
So I would be like, okay.
So the other thing is, how do you mix colors and patterns in a room without it looking overwhelming?
I think you need to maintain a palette, right?
Mhm.
So you need to think about the color wheel. You know what I mean? Like you have complementary colors, you know what I mean? You have things that match and things that don't. And so if you look at the color wheel, stay within a palette, right? So if we're going for nudes and let's say we're going for neutral colors, don't show up in here with something just big, bright, and orange just because you thought it was cute. Like, sis, what? We was going nude. Like, why are we over here? You know what I'm saying? So I think keep your palette, maintain what you're doing. And if you keep everything in the palette, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's a different texture. It doesn't necessarily matter, like, you know, if it's styled a little different, because it's all going to be cohesive and flow together. You know, you want to create some flow. Things start looking hodgepodge when you got, you know, yellow over here, neon over here. Oh, but then we have beige. Then, you know what I mean? Like, then it start looking crazy. But if you keep things on the same palette, you'll be all right. It's not that hard.
Agreed.
Sometimes it's harder though, like let's say for the person who they now have the house with the multiple bedrooms, the multiple rooms, the area, the seating area, what have you. And that can feel very much overwhelming. Sometimes it's more so than if you had, let's say, a studio. How do you, is it important to have a similar vibe or flow throughout the home? Or there's also those folks that are like, listen, my living room is going to be my living room, my dining room is a completely different experience. What's the dynamic there?
I think that there's a difference between complementary and like matching or themed things. And so you always want every space in your home to be complementary and for there to be a flow. But in open spaces in particular, you should make sure that the palette is cohesive. If you have a space where you can close doors and things are compartmentalized, then that's okay. So if everything is bright and airy everywhere in your space, but then maybe you have your man cave or your she shed, and that's like a dark color or a different theme because that's personal to you. If you have a door and it's not open to all the other spaces, that's okay. Yeah. So just keep in mind, in open spaces, you want to make sure things flow and that they're cohesive. In spaces where you have closed off compartments, it's okay to make sure they're complementary, but that they don't match everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, like my children's rooms would be different than, you know, what's happening kind of in the rest of my house. You know, I have a teenager, so bless.
we gave her a theme and she did.
Disobedient. This shit hanging on the walls.
Oh my God.
What is this?
Evidence now. I'm like,
where does this LED lights come from? She was like, oh, I liked it. I was like, okay, girl, that's not what we was going for, but you got it.
Okay, Sid needs to come on the show to have her say, because I feel like y'all giving her a bad rep, and those LED lights are probably fire.
In her mind. In her mind.
Love it.
I love it. Oh my God. Courtney and Leslie, we've had the best time with this interview today.
Oh my God. Thank you.
It has been so fun. I think we met our spirit animals, our babies.
Yes, love you guys.
Yes, this is it. Like, we need to go get like brunch or something after this.
Let's do it. We do.
To celebrate episode 1 once it premieres, we're there.
Yeah. Boom. We want to thank you guys so much. I know we literally talked about tons of things within this conversation, and so we're so excited that we were able to kind of learn, you know, from corporate to starting businesses to design, what makes sense in a space, what doesn't make sense in a space, how we can make something cohesive, and, you know, make it pop to your own personality. Staying true to yourself and being you is always number one. Make sure you're always stepping out in excellence, honey, because you never know what's you. Okay, so we just want to thank you guys so much for dropping the gems and giving us life today. So we want to give you guys a moment to tell us where can the people find y'all on social, websites, if they need to book you.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Come on, bro.
Yes. Listen. And more about Sister Fixers in general.
Yes. Well, you can find me everywhere on the internet at Hot Mommy. That's HAUTEMOMMIE. There's a blog, there's an Instagram. I'm probably on the TikTok. I'm on Twitter. You know, if you need me, that's how you can get to me. You know, for booking, honey, the link is in the bio, beloved. You know, hit me, right? As Jesus would say. I
am on the internet as @Materials Methods Design. You can check out my Instagram. You can visit the website. If you are interested in working with me as an interior designer or myself and my sister, you can definitely just shoot an email to that link on the Instagram page or on the website, and we can set you up with a consultation. Sister Fixers is airing this fall, and if you follow us on the social medias, you will know the air date as soon as we do.
Okay.
Okay? But September and October, just keep an eye out. Just
So
keep an
that's the
eye out.
fall. That's what they be dropping.
Love. Okay, Akila, girl, where can we find you on the socials?
Okay, on the internets, on the socials, you can find me chatting business, chatting pop culture and lifestyle at Akila Friend, AKILAHFFRIEND. Ebony, where can we find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram chatting everything Black-owned businesses at Ebony Chapman 12. This has been such an amazing episode. We just want to say thank you guys so much. Always abide by your ABCs. Always be creating. Have a good one.
Yes.